The platform at MacArthur Station was full of Saturday morning movement. Footsteps, conversations, the hiss of a train breaking in, the electronic chime that warned doors were closing. People stood in clusters beneath the signs, shoulder to shoulder, waiting for the next ride into the city. Nia Wilson stood beside her younger sister, looking down the tracks, thinking about nothing more dangerous than whether their friends were already on the way. Nia was 18 years old. She had just finished high school and talked about the life that was supposed to come next. Work, independence, plans that felt close enough to touch. That morning in July of 2018, she and her sister had gone to the station to meet up with friends. The trip was ordinary. There was no fight, no argument, no tense exchange that drew attention. The danger was not loud. It did not circle them or announce itself. It approached from behind. A man walked onto the platform and moved toward the girls without speaking. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He closed the distance the way any commuter might, slipping into the same narrow space everyone shared. In a public place like that, people were used to strangers brushing past. For a brief moment, nothing about him looked like a warning. Then he pulled a knife. The first strike landed in Nia's neck. It was immediate and catastrophic. She collapsed to the ground as her sister turned, screaming, trying to understand what she was seeing. The man stabbed again, fast and close, and then the attack was over as suddenly as it began. Seconds earlier, the platform had been nothing but noise and routine. Now people froze in shock, their minds struggling to catch up to what their eyes had just witnessed. Nia's sister tried to reach her, to pull her away, to stop the bleeding with her hands. Her screams cut through the station. Some bystanders stepped back, terrified that the attacker might return. Others shouted for help. Someone called 911. Some people recorded, holding phones up as if distance and a screen could make the scene less real. In the middle of it all, Nia lay on the concrete, bleeding, while her sister stayed with her, refusing to leave. The man walked away through the station after the stabbing. He did not run. He moved through the crowd as if he belonged there, disappearing toward the exits. Station cameras captured his path. Witnesses described him. Transit police and Oakland police began searching immediately, working off the surveillance footage and the reports coming in. Paramedics arrived and rushed Nia to the hospital. The wounds were too severe. She was pronounced dead shortly after arriving. She had been killed in broad daylight, in a busy public station, with people all around her, an ending that felt impossible to accept because it happened in the place where routine was supposed to keep everyone safe. Investigators moved quickly to identify a suspect. Within hours, police arrested John Lee Cowell. Authorities described him as having a documented history that included prior violent behavior and mental health issues. The arrest came fast, but it did not answer the question that mattered most to the people who loved Nia. Why her? Detectives found no evidence that Nia knew the man who attacked her. There was no relationship to trace, no prior contact uncovered, no dispute that escalated. The attack appeared random. That fact made the crime even harder to process. It meant there was no argument she could have avoided, no warning she could have recognized, no choice that would have changed the outcome. She had been standing with her sister, waiting for a train, when a stranger decided to kill. As the details became public, anger followed grief. People asked how someone with a violent history could be out in the world without safeguards that protected the community. They asked what systems existed to track someone like Cowell after previous arrests and releases. They argued about supervision, treatment, responsibility, and the gaps that opened when warning signs were treated as someone else's problem. For Nia's family and friends, the debate didn't touch the raw center of it. They talked about who she had been. They described her as joyful and affectionate, someone who protected her siblings and carried herself with confidence. Friends remembered the way she laughed, the way she showed up for people, the way she talked about her future like it was a promise. Then, in a single violent moment, that future was taken. The platform at MacArthur Station became a place of mourning. Flowers appeared first, then candles, then handwritten notes that used her name over and over, as if repeating it could push back against the finality. Strangers stopped to read the messages. Some stood silently for a long time. Others cried in a place they normally hurried through. Trains continued to arrive and depart. The station kept moving, but the memorial marked the spot where time had broken for one family. Nia's younger sister carried the heaviest burden of all. She had been there, close enough to feel the moment the routine shattered, close enough to hear and see what no one should ever witness. She survived, but survival came with trauma that did not fade when the scene was cleaned or the headlines moved on. She had held her sister and begged for help, and she lived with the memory of those seconds. The case moved into the court system, slow and procedural compared to the speed of the attack. Prosecutors relied on surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, and medical evidence that documented exactly how Nia died. The defense raised issues connected to Cowell's mental state, which shaped hearings and motions and complicated a process already painful for the family. Each appearance in court forced the details back into the open, described in controlled language that could not soften what had happened. When a verdict was reached, Cowell was found guilty of first-degree murder. The conviction brought legal accountability, but it did not restore what was lost. Nia's family spoke about her in statements that made clear what the court record could not capture. She was not just a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a young woman whose life had been cut off at the moment it was supposed to begin. In the days after the stabbing, vigils gathered outside the station and in neighborhood streets. People held candles and signs, and they said her name out loud so it wouldn't vanish into a statistic. Transit officials increased police presence on platforms, and riders reported scanning faces and exits in a way they never had before. The randomness of the attack changed how the city moved, and it raised renewed questions about how violent histories and mental health crises were handled before they reached the public. In Oakland and beyond, Nia Wilson's name became tied to a fear that many people carried quietly. The crime demonstrated how violence could erupt without warning in a place filled with witnesses. It challenged the belief that being in public meant being protected. It forced a community to confront the uncomfortable truth that some dangers moved through crowds unnoticed until the moment they struck. For those who loved her, the story never became abstract. It remained personal, anchored to a morning at a train station, to a sister's scream, to the shock of a public killing that offered no explanation. Nia Wilson went to MacArthur Station expecting a normal day, and she never came home. Thank you for listening to Homicide Files. Subscribe for more true crime stories.